Welcome to episode 50 of the Power and Light podcast, a momentous occasion for this show. My name is Josiah Winnell, and I am so excited to join both the two guys that are alongside me and all of you that are listening for this discussion about the Super Bowl that's coming up in just a few days. But first off, I'd like to introduce Preston Graber and Jude Miley. Preston, first off, how does it feel to hit number 50?
Well, it's been a grind and we are here. So, keep going. Next up, 100.
That's right, Jude. Jude, based off what Preston just said, that's right, everything he said, but 50, is that number special to you in any way?
Yeah, I remember when I was 10 years old, but now 50 episodes. I can't even believe that.
Yeah, you hit 50 episodes before you turned 50. That's a good run. So let's get into it now that all the fanfare is out of the way, but we are very excited. It's such a fun time doing this show, and the fact that we got to do number 50 for our Super Bowl preview, for our third straight Super Bowl preview, is incredible. So let's dive right into it, but you can't talk about where you're going without looking back at where you've been. So let's look at the first two games of this playoffs. And first off, Preston, I think you're the one that should start us off. Obviously, starting the divisional round with the Texans, but Mr. Preston Graber, if you listen back to our last few episodes, he predicted a Chiefs-Bills AFC Championship. Preston, take us through what the Chiefs have gone through so far and how they got to this spot, but also, how did you know that that was going to be the case, and were you surprised by the results?
Well, yeah, obviously, going back to the divisional round, Texans, Chiefs, I feel like that was a game that the Chiefs kind of just slept walk through. They really just did what they had to win, and they didn't do anything more than that. It did get a little scary towards the end there, and Stroud was trying to make a comeback, but really, in the end, that was an easy game. And then the Bills, man, they had an interesting road, handled the Broncos. And then Ravens game was probably one of the most entertaining divisional games we've seen in a while. And they came out of that one on top by 2, and then jump into the AFC Championship. And man, I'll let Jude do some of the talking on what he saw there. But man, it was a crazy game. Mahomes completely outplayed Allen in every statistical category. But
Yeah,
we're finally starting to put it together. So
yeah, for sure. That's what we talked about in our last episode. It was, are the Chiefs lucky? And then we talked about, can they put it together right when it matters? And they are starting to. Jude, I think Preston foreshadowed it perfectly. Break down what you saw in that AFC Championship and what that performance looked like should encourage and should get Chiefs fans really excited for this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I liked Mahomes, just the calm kind of it felt like he was just playing his game. But to be honest, I was surprised when they won because I'm looking at Josh Allen. I might just call him Joshua for this. I was looking at Joshua, and he was throwing the ball, making passes, and I was in awe. I was like, man, he wants to win the game. But so did Mahomes, and Mahomes makes the scores. The Chiefs are winning by a field goal, and then there's Allen on the field, marching down the field. I'm like, man, they've got the ball. They're going to end with the ball. They're going to win it. But no, the Chiefs defense shows up. That was kind of the craziest thing I'd seen in a while with football. So I was like, man, that was a good game.
So when you look at Josh Allen's game, what about it just makes him so susceptible to lose to Patrick Mahomes? I think it's like this random thing. It's just how it's ended up. But the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes, beat the Bills in the playoffs. It's happened quite a few times now. What do you think about it? And then also look at the regular season. The Bills usually beat the Chiefs in the regular season. The Chiefs win when it matters. But what do you think about Josh Allen's game? It just makes him so susceptible in all of these close games in the playoffs. And what does he got to do to get over the hump and finally make a Super Bowl appearance at some point in his future career?
yeah, looking at Josh Allen, it's easy to see the talent he has. He is one of the best in the world. He's probably one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen within the last 50 years. He can do it all, right? He kind of reminds me of John Elway. And so watching Josh Allen play, the hump, it's there in the playoffs and he can't get over it. And it's the Chiefs. I don't understand it. I really, in this game, I wanted the Chiefs to win very badly. But also, if Allen made it to the Super Bowl, I was going to be fine with that because he deserved it. He's played so well. So I almost think that it's something to do with the Chiefs defense. Like we play them the one time in the regular season and they show us everything, but the Chiefs don't show them everything. So I think that the Chiefs defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo does a really good job with that.
The Chiefs defense has played incredible, and I think that's the biggest reason why, number one, the Chiefs won a Super Bowl last year, but also this year. But it's an offense on the other side that's led by Patrick Mahomes, and the combination of him, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce is just incredible. But Jude, speaking of that man, Travis Kelce specifically, last year, he stood on a podium and then in front of Kansas City and immediately started talking about a three-peat. And I think what people kind of said was, yeah, that would be nice. And going and getting that third ring in a row in all of sports, not just the NFL, is one of the top things, one of the most influential things you can do in your sport. But looking back, when he said it, I think there was a lot of doubt. I mean, it's hard to get to the Super Bowl. It's hard to win a Super Bowl, let alone just get there. Just ask Josh Allen. But Jude, now that Travis Kelce had that moment about just over a year ago, what do you think the odds are now that his little prophecy comes true?
At this point, where we're looking at it, Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, I think the percent chance is probably around 70. About 70 seems pretty fair. But if you're looking back and thinking from his time period, like, and you're watching him and he's saying this, you're like, man, this guy really has a desire to win. He likes winning. But I don't think it's going to happen again. That's just unlikely. But the thing about unlikely is that that's from a perspective of a viewer. But these players, they're smart. Andy Reid is smart. And when you've got a program with a culture that likes to win, they have a little bit more knowledge in their brain. They're going to know how to win. And so I think from the perspective now, we should be like, yeah, Chiefs could win like 5 or 6 in a row, and we shouldn't be surprised about that.
I mean, who knows, right? It's got to end at some point, right? There's no way what we're seeing right now can continue on and on and on. Because let's be honest, if it goes 10 years, Patrick Mahomes just dominates the NFL, which I highly doubt will not happen. Let's just say it's not going to be very entertaining, right? Already, NFL fans outside of the Kansas City Chiefs fans are starting to get frustrated, are starting to get a little bit, I don't want to say livid about the referees, but I think they're just taking their anger out on how good the Chiefs are. Jude, it felt like a while ago, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs were like the NFL's, little child that they're really trying to show off to everybody. Their billboard kid that they're like, yeah, this is our favorite. This is the team we want to market. Let's put them on all the primetime games. Jude, do you think the script is kind of flipped? I saw a bunch of pictures of Darth Vader with Patrick Mahomes' heads. Is it really the evil side of it now? Is it the hated team right now? And what do you think contributed to getting to this point?
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting thing. The Chiefs, they're so good, and people don't like seeing the same team win over and over again because at the end of the day, people have their own team, right? And so while the Chiefs are young, they might be easy to root for because the Chiefs weren't like superstars all throughout their days, right? And you see a new young guy who's making really good plays. They're like, yeah, let's cheer for this team. But now we're kind of like, oh, let's cheer for this team. And it gets to the point where we don't want to cheer for this team anymore. We want our teams to have a chance. And so the Chiefs nowadays, it's like, yeah, they're kind of the villains now because they're almost too good. And it's just not as fun to root for the same team over and over again. People like to see the underdog have success.
We'll see, and it's surprising to say, but the underdog in terms of just legacy is probably the Philadelphia Eagles, just because the Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs obviously beat them 2 Super Bowls ago to start off this run. Preston, let's begin to break down this Super Bowl, looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, who again, 2 years ago, were in this exact same game against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously the Chiefs win that game in once again, a close game. But looking at everything that happened since then, this Eagles team is very different. I can think of one obvious difference, but Preston, kind of break down the differences and how this Eagles team has changed over the last 2 years.
I mean, I think we can all agree that the biggest difference is probably their receiving core. I mean, and Saquon Barkley. So it's their full offensive weapons. I mean, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, they're coming into their own. And then, yeah, acquiring Saquon Barkley in the offseason. Obviously, that will change some things when you have a guy that can run for 2,000 yards and basically score a 60-yard touchdown whenever he so pleases. So I think those are probably the biggest difference. They've also added a ton of Georgia defenders on the defensive side of the ball. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell out of Iowa and Toledo, respectively. I mean, they have a really young defense that's really electric now. They kind of hit that turnover where they went from the older guys that were all superstars to now kind of some of the younger, more electric kind of guys that make plays. And then, yeah, on offense, they can lean on Saquon, and Saquon can literally do everything for them. And when we played them last, they had Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, I believe. So nothing as crazy as Saquon.
Yeah, it's a completely different team, I think is probably what I'm trying to say. But the core is still there, right? You know, Sirianni, Hurts, like this core is still there. And I feel like that might be the key to success for the Kansas City Chiefs. But we just talked about it. This addition of Saquon Barkley changes the game completely. He adds so many options to this offense with the Philadelphia Eagles. Jude, here's the thing that we have to look at, right? Saquon Barkley has been dominant in every single game, but a momentum has carried him, right? He's had game after game after game. Now he has a 2-week stretch, obviously the Sunday off for the Pro Bowl and just the break for the Super Bowl. Do you think that this 2-week stretch will help him in terms of recovery or slow him down in terms of just momentum that's been pushing him?
I think it will help him because if you're playing a ton of games, your legs are obviously going to get tired and you're going to, feel the soreness in your legs and you're going to have to recover. And I don't think the momentum is like that big of a deal because he's probably been pumped up for these 2 weeks getting ready for the Super Bowl. It's probably not like dampering him down. He's probably just more and more time to think about it. And when he finally gets onto the field, that's going to be his moment. He's going to be ready to strike because this is what he's been ready for and expecting and hoping for the whole season. So once you get to this point, it's like 2 weeks. Yeah, sure. I may not have as much game time every week as I had in the past weeks. We got this bigger break, but I'm thinking and I'm visualizing what I'm going to do when I get out there so that I can be ready.
Justin, I feel like Saquon Barkley, again, he's got to be the X factor in this game. But there's one thing that I think really changes the landscape in terms of why the Chiefs could stop him, right? Some teams can't stop him. I think that was obvious in the Commanders game. The Commanders couldn't stop him. That was the difference in the game, right? If they were able to, that would change it. But this Kansas City Chiefs defense, not only is it good at forcing turnovers, we saw that in multiple regular season games, but also just kind of throughout this entirety of the season. But they are very good in terms of stopping the run. We saw it the first 5 weeks of the season, the Chiefs defense was unstoppable against the run. They shut down number one running backs left and right. But as the time kind of went on, that kind of changed. The Chiefs still a top 10 rush defense, but I feel like things have changed. Preston, why is this defensive squad for the Chiefs built so well to be able to and to be put in a good position to stop a guy like Saquon Barkley?
Well, I think the largest part that I would look at is we have 2 weeks to prepare. That the break between the championship game and the Super Bowl, having those 2 weeks, we're able to draw up an entire defensive scheme centered around Saquon Barkley. Because, in reality, we haven't seen much from the Eagles offense aside from Saquon and their rushing attack. Hurts will run every now and then. But, recently Hurts has thrown for 170 to 220 yards and maybe a touchdown or two. But Saquon has carried. So, I will be interested to see how the Chiefs attack it. Will Chris Jones line up more in the middle or will he stay more on the outside like he's been? Kirk Wharton's been doing a good job inside. Pennell has come in on rundowns and stuff, the running backs, but I'm interested to see that and also how far down we bring the safeties because if we're anticipating runs on first and second downs, I would expect Justin Reed to be in the box a lot. I would love to see Jaden Hicks in the game more, but we haven't trusted him as of late. But really, we just need to be able to chase down Saquon if we ever get behind. So having speed on the field's key.
The Chiefs definitely have speed, but I like what you said about that defensive back room and how important they are in stopping Saquon Barkley. But the issue I would say right now is it's kind of an injury-ridden that defensive backfield. There's a couple issues that the Chiefs are going to have to figure out how to plug and how to figure out what they can do to stop Saquon Barkley and these very talented receivers. And again, Jalen Hurts, he is a stud. But what is Jalen Hurts famous for? Well, on this show, we're going to call it the tush push. I know they want to call it the brotherly shove, but in all reality, we've seen a lot of different things, including last week, the Commanders, Zulu jumping over the top of the offensive line, trying to stop this tush push. Everything that we've seen from the defensive side against the actual Philadelphia Eagles tush push has been unsuccessful. However, the Buffalo Bills tried their own version of it against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs stopped it twice. So, Jude Miley, if the game comes down to, or a few big moments come down to a Philadelphia Eagles tush push, what do the Kansas City Chiefs have to do to shock the world and stop the quote-unquote unstoppable play?
Well, the thing about it is, I personally believe it's unstoppable. So it's hard to answer. But if I had to give like a key to success, I mean, it would just be just hope you get lucky, right? Just push, because sometimes it feels like there's no skill involved. It's all just who's stronger, and the offense seems to always be stronger because of just the formation that they can set up.
We've got big guys. I think Preston just ran down that defensive line on what kind of guys can be out there. And the nice thing is, if the Eagles try to go hurry up on us, we can leave some of those guys out there and still trust them. The question really is can our linebackers be effective in all that they do in terms of stopping that momentum forward? Because that second effort is really where the Eagles have a lot of success. You can stop them on their first effort, but then the O-line and the tight ends that come from behind, they'll do something to try to push it forward, and the second effort is usually what gains any term of success for that team. But I think it's going to really change the approach, especially defensively, for the Chiefs in terms of downs before that. So Preston, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you think that, the difference between a tackle right in front of the line of scrimmage versus 3 yards, that completely changes the game. And that's why I think tackling is probably the biggest thing for the Chiefs. If they can make open field tackles, that will change the game. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, on third and 3 versus 3rd and 1 is very different. Or even 4th and 3 versus 4th and 1. That's the difference between getting the ball back via a punt versus getting a fresh set of downs for the Eagles with a tush push. Can you tell me if I'm wrong? But I feel like that's going to change how you approach the first few downs.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously the tackling is going to be huge for the Chiefs. Our defensive backs haven't really been able to make the tackles on the running backs when necessary, so I think that keeping the Eagles in a spot where they don't even get to, 3rd and 3 I would even be wary of, because they could literally just run the ball with Saquon, bet that he gets 1 or 2 yards, and then go for it on 4th and 1, depending on where they're at in the territory. So really we got to hope for 3rd and 5, maybe a bit less, maybe 3rd and 4 is fine. But yeah, our linebackers, I mean, tackling is going to be the biggest issue. Saquon breaks so many tackles, and anything within the line of scrimmage that's within like 1 or 2 yards, they're going to be doing the touch push. And we stopped Josh Allen, but we stopped Josh Allen because literally every time Josh Allen does it, he goes to the left guard. And so the Chiefs knew how to blew that up. But this is just another level. I don't think we're stopping the Eagles if they get to any and one.
Yeah, that means you got to stop them before they get to that spot. All right, before we return back to a breakdown of the actual game, let's take a break, take a timeout, and discuss a few of the superlatives of this game. Obviously, there's so much fanfare around the actual Super Bowl, but I think my first question for Jude, we're just going to try to go through this quickly, but I want to discuss it. Jude, are you Team Drake or Team Kendrick, and how is that going to contribute to your excitement for the halftime show?
Personally, I'm a big Drake fan because I like the phrase Anita Max win. I'm a big fan of it. And so, I mean, I'm not a big Kendrick guy because of it, but I'll probably still be in the room when the halftime show is playing. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Preston, you give us your take, but I'm thinking back of that one Super Bowl between the Rams and the Bengals in which the Chiefs weren't participating. Yeah, Kendrick put on a pretty good show. Are you excited for this, or is this kind of just a break for you from screaming at the television the whole game?
I mean, I think it will be a good halftime performance, but I have no opinion on who could have performed or who will perform in the future. Hopefully, it's not just Kendrick out there. I know there's normally other people, so hopefully he brings on someone else because the solo performances just are not it.
I do believe he has plans to bring on some other people. But you know what? Here's the thing. The only performance that any of us three care about is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's ultimately what we're going to say on that. But I just thought it would be fun to kind of break that down because it is, that is the highlight for some people that watch, football. This is a very united. I mean, this is a huge, huge game in terms of sports. It's one of the most watched games in America. And it usually is the most watched sporting event in America in terms of just viewership. And that's correlating straight to Fox and their commercial spots. Some of their commercial spots are worth over $8 million. And they are racking up some money. So a lot of money, a lot of festivities all around this game. There's a lot to be excited about. All right, last thing in our timeout. I'm actually going to switch it up on us, and I'm sorry. We're switching to NBA. Jude, Preston, what happened last night? Preston Graber, Luka Doncic to play with LeBron James. Break down what happened in just the last 24 hours.
Yeah. Well, so from my perspective, right, I'm sitting in bed at 11:30 at night, thinking, okay, I should probably be going to bed soon. And this notification pops up, and I was like, okay, it can't be that important. And no, it is the most important thing in NBA history. And it says Luka Doncic traded. And I'm like, okay, well, where'd he get traded to? And then it says the Lakers. And I'm just sitting here thinking there's no way LeBron James and Luka Doncic are about to be playing together. And so, I look at the details of the trade. Luka gets moved, and then Davis goes to the Mavericks, and then the Jazz, for some reason, are involved in this trade, and they pick up Jalen Hood-Schifino. And then there's some other pieces to the puzzle, but man, that was a shock. That is gonna send some waves through the NBA, and it's exactly what the NBA needed. They were struggling with their viewership, and man, I think, yeah, the Lakers could do something in the next year or two. And we'll see. This could be a sign of LeBron and what he's doing with his career.
We'll see. It sounds like LeBron is for sure staying past the Thursday deadline, the NBA trade deadline. But yeah, like you said, the NBA loves this. The NBA loves that these big, earth-shattering trades are coming in right when viewership is lower than ever because of the Super Bowl week. If some other trades happen, and based on what we're hearing with Jimmy Butler, there might be another massive trade. I feel like this is exactly what the NBA wants. They want people to kind of look at some other sports besides the NFL. They want them to kind of keep an eye on it. As soon as Friday turns around and the trade deadline's over, yeah, they're locked in on football. But think about it. If you are really, really locked in on sports this week, because it's one of the biggest weeks in sports, and you're kind of watching back and forth, you're watching, media day, you're watching some of the events that happen, you're watching NFL honors, all of these things. And then, Pro Bowl obviously this weekend, but then you're also kind of keeping an eye on the NBA. What are you going to do once football is over? Because after Sunday, football is over. Regardless of who wins, football is over. So we're going to turn to for your sports addiction if you have one. I'd say some people are going to be a lot more interested in the NBA. So this is ingenious. Obviously, it's not I'm guessing it's not planned out or very intentional from the NBA, but this is interesting to me. We'll see what it kind of breaks down, and hopefully we'll have an NBA episode. But as a Warriors fan, I'm hoping Jimmy comes, even though he's kind of a toxic player. But before all of those theories start to pile up, the one thing that is for sure is that Luka is headed to play with LeBron. And that is a really interesting duo. I've never loved Luka. I think his defense is horrible. But offensively, he is one of the most effective players in not only just the NBA. And I know you have to say this now because of how good the world is. But he's one of the best players in the world. and he's proven it quite a few times on the offensive side. We'll see if the defensive just specialties of the coaching staff down in Los Angeles has anything for him. And we'll see if he gets a friendship of some kind with Bronny. We'll see how that all works out, and we'll see. I don't know if any other big trades are coming, but if it doesn't, they said that this trade, like you said, Preston, is one of those where you have to double check. And actually, one of the headlines I said was that the headline that you have to quadruple check before you send to your friends. So it is just earth-shattering for the NBA, and it caught our attention, so I think that they're doing a good job. All right back to the biggest game of the year, the NFL Super Bowl 59 from New Orleans. The Chiefs facing the Eagles. It's a huge moment for the Kansas City Chiefs, who are attempting to go for Pat Riley's three-peat. If you haven't heard about that, you should go research that. The Chiefs will have to pay to use the term three-peat. But without diving too far into that, historically, this would change everything. Patrick Mahomes has had an incredible start to his career. Actually, incredible is probably undermining it, but this is the biggest thing. So, Preston, let's just kind of go from ground zero before we give our predictions. If you had to give a preview to not an avid sports fan, what about this game excites you? What are you worried about for both teams? And what will decide the game?
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe the not so dedicated sports listeners out there, but you're listening to our show. So thank you for listening to our show. This game is going to be one of the best games of the year in the NFL. We're going to have two of the best players in the NFL and three of the probably top 20 players as well. So we're going to have around 5 top 20 players in the NFL playing in this game. One of those is on the Eagles side, Saquon Barkley. He is the best running back in the league, and some would say that he's an MVP candidate, and Mahomes is a yearly candidate on the Chiefs side. So the offensive sides of the ball both have MVP candidates. And then on the defensive sides of the ball, Eagles, really young, really talented, should pressure Mahomes, maybe make him think a little. So we'll see how that goes. And same for the Chiefs side. A little more veteran defense, but we have some really young corners, so that should be fun to watch. If Hurts has to throw the ball at all, that could be the deciding factor in the game. How does Hurts pass the ball? So keep an eye on that.
My final question before we get to predictions is, Jude, looking back to last year, I made a prediction that at the end of the game, the Super Bowl, if the Chiefs were to two-peat, which would have been incredible, would have been historic, would have set so many records, all the things, then I believed that Travis Kelce would have popped the question to Taylor Swift at the end of the game on the field with all the confetti. That did not happen, and maybe that was a little bit too quick, but far be it from me to be a predictor in this. But Jude, my question for you is, if the Chiefs win, okay, take it from there. If the Chiefs win, what is more likely? The prediction that I just said, Travis Kelce pops the question of will you marry me to Taylor Swift, or Travis Kelce announces that his career is over. What is the most likely thing to happen, Jude, if the Chiefs win?
Okay, the most likely thing to happen out of those two things, and this is a really difficult question because these are, I don't know anything really, but if I had to pick one, I would say he's going to propose to Taylor Swift under the confetti with the lights on,
All right.
Everybody rushing on the field. My goodness, Taylor, will you marry me?
Perfect. Okay, all right, Preston, do you have a differing opinion?
I mean, not necessarily. I really don't know what's going on in Kelsey's mind. I saw a thing the other day that was like he could be in for an extension, and it would be like a 2-year extension. So he'd be playing till he's like really old. But I don't know. I do think that whenever he proposes that he'll retire. So I think those two will go hand in hand whenever that may be.
I mean, everybody keeps talking about when is he going to fall off. And I feel like this year was the year that he kind of fell off in terms of not performing as he has in the past. But he still was incredible. He still is going to, obviously not there, but he was still a Pro Bowl selection. Like, he is still the top of the game. It's hard to find a good offensive tight end. He changed the game at the tight end position. So looking at what he's done this year, I don't think that the end is anytime near, but 3 Super Bowls, people love to walk off into the sunset. The only way either of those things can truly happen in the way that I described them is if the Chiefs three-peat. So we'll see if that happens, but I think it's time for our score prediction. So we'll go Preston, I'll go me, Preston, and then Jude. Give your score prediction, your champion, and your Super Bowl MVP. So I'll start it off with me. I do believe the Kansas City Chiefs will win this game, and they will score 32 points. They'll get over the hump finally, and they will give up a total of 28 points, win by 4. The Super Bowl MVP, just because it's how they always choose, usually the quarterback. I think it will be Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs winning. Now, I will say, though, the actual, really, if the Chiefs win like that, the actual Super Bowl MVP for me would likely be George Karlaftis. All right, Preston, give us your prediction, please.
So for my final score, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say 38-24 with the Chiefs having the victory. This may not be a popular opinion because, again, the Chiefs haven't scored above 32 yet in a game. So I think the offense goes off, and I do think that Mahomes will win the MVP as he has for, 2 years, 3 years maybe in Super Bowl? Anyway, but I think the player of the game, as you were saying, George Karlaftis, I think Nick Bolton is going to have a flashback to that last Super Bowl, and he's going to return one for a touchdown, and then he's going to say, that's not enough. And then he's going to return a second one. So he's going to return 2 touchdowns on defense.
Yeah, last time they played the Eagles, those were voided. He would love for that to happen. Jude, what is your predictions for the Super Bowl 59?
I think the score will be 25-18 in favor of the Chiefs, and the MVP of the game will be not Travis, probably Patrick Mahomes.
All right, thank you, guys. As Jude prepares our quote of the day, I'll just say that was a clean sweep across the front. I want to promise that we're not completely biased. Well, we are a little bit. I'm looking at these two teams, and I'm deciding which team has done it. The last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I know it wasn't that long ago, but think about that team. That team looked completely different. And Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, they've lost 2 games this year, but one of those was to the Bills, and the other one was without Patrick Mahomes. And without any of the starters, this team has just been winning nonstop, and it's going to end. Like the dynasty, I don't know. A dynasty is over multiple years. There's losses within a dynasty, but a stretch like this, it's rare. And obviously, if they win, it's never happened before. But this NFL dynasty, this stretch within this dynasty, it's going to end eventually. But I think Chiefs fans are just hoping that it doesn't happen on Sunday. And I really don't believe it will, because the Kansas City Chiefs have been so good. And the only ones who don't think that they're going to win the game probably, or I guess aren't worried about all of the outside noise, are the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the perfect team at focusing and not getting distracted. We've seen them lose before, but I think because of that loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are now locked in on winning this game. They are completely focused. So, Jude, as we prepare for yet another Super Bowl Sunday, what is the quote that will be ringing through our minds as we watch Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts take the field against each other?
I don't know if this one will be ringing through your mind, but I've got a quote from James Madison, 1788. He said, "Men were angels, no government would be necessary."